Look, I'm going to be straight with you. This Kyle Tucker situation is absolutely wild right now, and we need to talk about what's actually happening because the noise is getting deafening. Ken Rosenthal just came out and flat out said Toronto is the leader for Kyle Tucker. When Ken Rosenthal says something like that, you listen. This isn't some random blogger throwing stuff at the wall. This is one of the most connected guys in baseball telling us the Blue Jays are in the driver's seat. But here's where it gets interesting. Mark Feinsand dropped a report that basically nobody's talking about, and it's huge. Two industry sources are saying Tucker to Toronto is the likely outcome, especially after they locked up Vlad and signed Okamoto. The quote was something like, once they extended Vlad, they sent a message they're going all in, and adding Tucker would cap off an incredible 12 months. Robert Murray said a few days ago that Tucker actually wants to play for the Jays. These reporters don't just make this stuff up for clicks. There's real substance here. Now, before you get too comfortable, let's address the elephant in the room. John Heyman came out last night saying the Mets are very much in the mix for Tucker. Ben Nicholson-Smith has been hinting the Mets might actually be the favorite, but here's my read on this. It smells like leverage. Cody Gosman said it perfectly when he tweeted, "I smell leverage," because that's exactly what this is. If Tucker isn't getting the money he wants from Toronto, and we know he's not getting $400 million, then suddenly the Mets become this convenient boogeyman to drive up the price. It's negotiating tactics straight out of the Scott Boras playbook. The really telling part, though? Ken Rosenthal also said the Mets can't rely on a short-term high AAV deal if they want Tucker. They need to go longer, and that's where Toronto has the advantage because they're clearly willing to commit long-term. This isn't like some of these other situations where teams are offering opt-outs every other year. The Jays want Tucker for the long haul, and that matters. Now let's talk about Bo Bichette, because this is where everything connects. Yesterday, Heyman reported Bo's looking for something around $300 million. $300 million for a shortstop coming off his worst season. The Phillies have scheduled a meeting with him, and apparently they're doing serious work on what trading Alec Bohm would look like. The big connection here? Don Mattingly just went to Philadelphia after leaving Toronto, and Bo and Donnie had a really tight relationship. That's not nothing. Bill Madden, who's got some radio background, is saying his sources tell him the Phillies are now the favorite for Bo. Here's what this means for the Tucker situation. If Bo goes to Philly, which honestly might be better than him going to the Yankees or Red Sox, then Toronto absolutely has to land Tucker. There's no scenario where the Jays lose both guys and can call this offseason successful. You can't whiff on both. Ross Atkins has done solid work so far, locking up Vlad, signing Okamoto, getting Dylan Cease, but none of that matters if you strike out on Tucker after losing Bo. The pressure is mounting, and that's probably why we're seeing all this leverage being thrown around. The timeline is getting tight, too. Bo's meeting with the Phillies is coming up next week. Tucker's camp is clearly playing teams against each other. Haven't heard anything about Toronto meeting with Bo recently, which tells you they might already know he's headed elsewhere and they're putting all their chips on Tucker. That's actually the smart play if you ask me, because Tucker is the better player right now and probably the better fit for what this team needs. What's fascinating is how quiet things have been compared to how many reports we're seeing. It's all the same handful of teams, the same names, just recycled in slightly different ways every few days. But underneath all that noise, deals are getting closer to happening. You don't see Ken Rosenthal saying Toronto's the leader if there isn't real momentum there. You don't see teams scheduling meetings with Bo if they're not serious about making an offer. The Blue Jays also just settled arbitration with Ernie Clement and Dalton Varsho, which is good housekeeping, but they couldn't settle with Yusei Kikuchi. They're heading to an arbitration hearing, which is going to be interesting given his strange usage pattern. Barely pitching 1 year and then dominating in a weird bullpen role last season. Bottom line, things are accelerating. That's tough to put a number on. The Mets might be real competition, or they might just be leverage. Bo is probably heading to Philadelphia. And if all these reporters are right, Tucker ends up in Toronto. But until we see that official announcement, anything can happen. The next 2 weeks are going to be absolute chaos, and I'm telling you right now, this is either going to be the best offseason the Blue Jays have had in years, or it's going to be a massive disappointment if they can't close the deal on Tucker. One way or another, we're about to find out just how serious Toronto really is about winning. The clock is ticking, the pressure is real, and the stakes couldn't be higher.